Peace and praise, blessed ones. Happy New Year. Welcome to The Vibe. I am your host, Blair, and this is episode 164. And I'm happy to join y'all in the second Thursday of the year. New Year was last week. We are now 8 days in the new year. And I am happy and proud to tell y'all that honestly, it may sound like a cliche, but this is my year. I feel great about the podcast this year. I got a lot of great things that I'm working on, trying to, set up. I want to first thank you all for coming to the show. Lost my train of thought for a second. But new year, on some new things. Same me, same agenda. Suggestions, questions, requests. Y'all know what to do. First, I would like to, of course, thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. More so, thank God for giving up his only begotten Son. Because without him, I wouldn't be here. Without him, y'all wouldn't be here listening. Without him, we wouldn't be able to, have this privileged life that we have. And again, it may sound like a cliche, but God is everything. People say it all the time, but don't really understand what it means. I'll be happy to tell y'all what it means later. But, I've been, like I mentioned, I was trying to find a space to record the podcast. I'm in Virginia, so I was actually in Norfolk a few days ago, and I was talking with a lady, and I was looking at this space as far as like where to record the show. I have my vision on what I want to do with the show. Because again, rebranding, sometimes when you're rebranding, you have to make adjustments. But, there's the place that I went to, it was a co-working space. And they do offer offices for anybody who wants to, have their own personal office. It will be like if you have a logo, they'll put it on the door. It is $600 a month. I'm not willing to pay that right now at this moment. Like I mentioned, I do want to branch off, and I want to look into making this a network. Blaring the Podcast Network, where I take different podcasts and bring them over to the AB1 Studios office. Because right now I'm at home. I do everything myself, do editing if I need to do editing. I do everything myself. It's because, and what I wanted to explain to you all on what AB1 Studio is It's an Anthony Blair production. It's another black unit, another blessing, a blessed one studios where it incorporates creativity, art. I have this big vision on what AB1 Studios is, and I think I explained it to y'all before on earlier episodes. I have my YouTube, I have my page, and I tried having my own AB1 Studios YouTube channel, but I was like, you know what? I'm a brand myself, so I'll just incorporate AB1 Studios with myself. So I just have one YouTube channel. And, like the creativity of AB1 Studios is mainly music and podcasts. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, I am a songwriter. I can't sing, but I can write. I have the most impeccable pen that I've ever seen. Like, I don't want to toot my own horn. I want to be as humble as possible. But again, I make music that I like to listen to. And sometimes when I'm writing, I'm being very expressive and honest and vulnerable as I can be, based on a true story, really. However, I would like to write for other artists. I would like to create a space where people can reflect, where people can listen and rejoice, because I make all type of music. I have a blues album available on all streaming platforms. I have an Afro Soul EP available on all streaming platforms. I even have, just instrumentals and all that. I've been doing music for a long time. And 2025 was the year where I decided to, branch off into the AI space and, hey, let me write more, because my previous projects that I had made available on streaming platforms was mainly just instrumentals, because I like to think of myself as a executive producer. I create the space, I make up, I set the tone for what I want things to be. I don't want to say I'm a boss. I don't want to say I'm a CEO. I just make executive decisions, executive moves. And as like I said, it's all started from the bottom. Like, I start from scratch. I do everything myself. I've been doing everything myself. I have relatives, I have friends who are in the music space. I know people who are in the podcast space. But one thing with me is I'm so reserved sometimes that I don't really go to them to, get, any type of recognition or any type of collaboration. But, like I say all the time, I am an ambivert or introvert, where I don't like to socialize as much, but I'm very outspoken. I am outgoing. So that's where it makes me an ambivert. That's just an introvert, extrovert mixed. However, like I said, AB1 Studios is just a creative space for creators to, whether they want to dance, whether they want to do music, whether they want to do podcasts, whether they want to do film or whatnot. I have this big vision on what I want AB1 Studios to be and what it is. And of course, you need money for that. And as someone, just call me Dr. DIY, I still have other responsibilities. So I'm just going to put it that way. I fund everything. Like I said, I have the equipment to do the podcast. I don't have the camera. Pretty soon I will have a camera, where, because I have a phone, but I do have a camera to where I can do YouTube videos or whatnot. But this is an audio only podcast. And I contemplate back and forth as far as if I wanted to make it a video. I do have a couple video episodes that's on YouTube. But, I really, like I said, I'd rather be heard than seen. Again, I have Instagram and social media for people who know me and want to see me, like all that. But for podcasting, I want to keep it in the audio space. And I know sometimes that can be, critical to allow me to have the subscribers and the traffic that I want it to be. But, Lord's will, a lot of us can't see God. We can just see the work of God. So I'll just put it that way. Because I have so much pride in standing out and being authentic and being vulnerable. I don't want to stray too far away from the purpose of the podcast. Like I said, I've had to rebrand multiple times. I remember in the beginning where the sound quality was terrible. I was just learning how to use the software. I was just really getting into production and whatnot. It's 2000. Like, I've been doing podcasts for more than 10 years now. I mean, of course, at that time it was a podcast. Like, I done things on my phone. I done things on my webcam. I done recorded and things like I was sitting with a coworker of mine before, and we was on there, and it was only on SoundCloud at the time. I had different podcasts. I had 2 Idle for a Title. I had 2 a podcast episode. I had a lot, and I'm a fan of podcasts. So listening to podcasts like The Brilliant Idiots, So Shameless, Balter Podcast, even in the beginning when I was watching, YouTube like Red Table Talk, $1 Million Worth of Game, just to say a few. I've always I've been someone who's always been very outspoken and very opinionated about things. And I remember when I was working at Enterprise, and I know a buddy of mine, he had said something. And I know it was actually a couple of them that was like, do y'all think Blair is a reincarnation of Jesus? Because it's just like, I'm just so positive and unconfrontational. And then I remember when me and a coworker of mine was at work and we was talking and I was recording us and we was talking about different things, like whether or not if you find out that you're dating someone who was born a different sex and they had a sex change but they didn't tell you, can you put your hands on them? I remember when we was talking about slavery and how we were oppressed so much, we needed hope. And that's how the faith of Christianity and religion came into a lot of our homes. Now, regardless of whether that's true or not, I want to address something. I'm not playing with nobody this year. I know people have said things always have these resolutions. My resolution is always the same, just be better. Just try to be a better man every day, be a better father, be a better son, be a better parent. Just be a better man for the sake of God's purpose for your life. But I'm not playing with anybody this year, meaning that I have an issue of letting people go. I don't like to let people go. I don't like to let go of things, especially things that aren't resolved or things that haven't been worked out. I've recently stopped talking to a very good brother of mine. One of my best friends of 20 plus years. I'm going to tell you a real quick story, real quick. I'm not for drama. I don't like gossip. I understand when people talk about us, it's hard not to respond. It's hard not to confront someone. And then when you do confront someone, it becomes a problem. Somebody's lying, somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that. For me, I've been so far removed from beef, yo. Another friend, close brother of mine of 20 plus years, we've been at odds for a long time. And for whatever reason, we never really always seen eye to eye. A lot of people would say we look alike. However, the point is this. As a man of faith, a man of God, I have to stand on business. Now, I will take accountability for me not having the same sentiment that I expect someone else to have for me. Let me hear you out. Let me tell you what's going on. Not to give too much information, but what I thought was an issue wasn't the issue. But again, this friend who I've recently stopped talking to, him and another brother of his, constantly, every time, just be like, this person's saying this about this and everything. And I'm just like, hey, man, this is what's going on. So I decided, and I think I've told this story on a previous episode before. Like I said, this isn't too recent, but 2026 is my year of elevation, my year of removing any dead weight, my year of standing on business. I'm trying to look into different spaces. I'm trying to branch off on different avenues. I'm trying to be taken more seriously. I finally finished my book, Soul Food in the Rib, that will be available on Valentine's Day, available for digital download only. So you can go on Amazon and look that up. Hard copies will be available in the later future. Haven't decided yet. Just to tell y'all what's been going on with my life these past few weeks. And I'm going to be more consistent. I promise. I promise y'all. I'm going to be more consistent in dropping these episodes. Like I said, I might decide to drop twice a week. Every day if I choose to, because again, I do it myself. Shout out to Wayno who has a podcast now. I do it myself. But my thing is, I'm done playing with people, yo. I don't like to cut people out my life who don't deserve it. But it's not always about whether they deserve it or not. It's just like, because I say this all the time. When we have a calling on our life, everybody can't go with us. Everybody's not going to make it. And I'm not saying that the relationship is over. I'm not saying that there's not a chance of rekindling relationships. But I'm just saying, this point in my life, I have tunnel vision. I have so much tunnel vision. I literally I had lost my mind for a few days. You know, like I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I was so out of my mind. I was an hour late for work because I was just so messed up in my head. Like I took something to help me relax and sleep, which I'm stopping doing. Like I cut off a lot of things I gotta go cold turkey on. Like I said, I'm not saying that I'm celibate or abstinent, but I'm not participating in anything sexual. I'm not entertaining negativity. So even in, the things that I consume, I'm very careful of that. For those people who are movie buffs, Avengers Doomsday drop at the end of the year. I plan to see that movie. A lot of movies are dropping this year I plan to see. And then even when I say there might be certain things I'm a little skeptical about, but again, I'm focusing on great things. I'm keeping it G for real. Like generous, genuine, gentlemanship, genius, goodness, godly. Like I just want godly vibes this year, yo. Just godly vibes. And sometimes the people who's in your life is dead weight. And that's no disrespect to anybody, but sometimes it's like, all right, you have to take your life seriously. You have to be willing to know your worth, know your value, and hold on a second. So you have to know your value. You have to understand your purpose and what God is telling you to do. Because one thing that I'm going to say is, regardless of what anybody says, regardless of what the world view is, regardless of how anybody feel, I have to be obedient. So if I have to cut off certain people, if I had to cut off certain food, if I had to cut off certain relationships, I'm going to do that. My responsibility to this world is greater than people's feelings, is greater than what people understand, is greater than what people know. Because like I said, you have to know your worth. And I'm also say that I hope that y'all know y'all worth And that's really all that's what's been going on with me. I'll be back again maybe later today to talk with y'all about other things because I was just coming up here to do a quick recap and to tell y'all what the plan was for the show. And like as always, I appreciate everybody who has came and take the time to listen to me today, this morning, this afternoon, tonight, wherever y'all are in the world. I really truly appreciate y'all. But as always, if y'all have any questions, suggestions, requests, feel free. And again, as always, stay safe, stay productive, and positive. This is Blair, and I'm out.